on. It's not in focus. Are we live? Welcome back, strangers. Why is it blurry?
I don't know.
Oh, man. I think you got it. There we go.
Nailed
It's
it.
kind of dark.
It's
Okay, you
always
guys.
dark.
I guess I could have flipped around, but welcome back, strangers. It's Friday night. We're here streaming. We're going to talk about some aviation mysteries. It's going to be a fun night. Tonight, I'm joined by my lovely wife, Rebecca. I'm Ethan with the Strangest. We're going to talk some mysteries.
This is Sasquatch.
Yeah, Sassy's our dog,
floppy.
in case you didn't know. So, tonight, Rebecca came up with this theme. How did you come up with it?
Well, I told Ethan that he should do a live stream on Mandela effects. Something like I had read about a Mandela effect that's somewhere in here, and I thought it was crazy. And I have a coworker who I don't want to say old because she might be watching it. She's the best, but she's older and she doesn't play any of my reindeer games. When I ask her like anything about any famous, popular Mandela effect, she doesn't play my reindeer games. Asked her when Nelson Mandela died, and she's like, it was on the TV. It was like 2007. I saw it. Barack Obama was there. I was like, okay, well, thanks for that. But I got her on this one. And when I was having this conversation with her, she's like, you got any more? Are there any of those about that Amelia Earhart? Are there any more? Can you tell me any more? And I just thought it was funny. And hearing her talk about it made me want Ethan to do a live stream about it in case anyone else feels the same way, I guess. I don't think Ethan played my reindeer games with this story either.
So what is this?
I don't even remember. I'm gonna let you handle that. You're the researcher here.
Okay. What's up, the Flaming Skull 500 and the Ghost Watch? We appreciate y'all being here. The Mandela effect that inspired this was what happened to Charles Lindbergh's baby that was kidnapped. Lindbergh. Yeah, I want to say
Lindenberg.
I know, sorry,
There's
Lindbergh.
No
I tried to fix that when I was like coming up with this because I was already saying it wrong. But so the thing is, like, a lot of people think the baby lived. It's a Mandela effect. What do you think happened to the baby?
Well, it's either I think it goes two ways. They either think that the baby lived, or that they never found it again and never found who did it.
Yeah.
Because as my coworker, she thought they never found it. And she had said that there were people claiming to be the Lindbergh baby on the news and that they never found it. And it was a great tragedy. I'm just like, oh, no. That's not what had happened. And when I told her that, she thought it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, so what really happened was on March 1st, 1932, Charles Lindbergh Jr., my bad, the 20-month-old son of aviator Charles Lindbergh was abducted from his crib on the upper floor of his home in Highlands in East Amwell, Highfields in East Amwell, New Jersey. The Lindbergh nurse, Betty Grow, that the baby was not with his mother, and Morale Lindbergh, who had just come out of the bathtub. Gowden alerted Charles, who immediately went to the child's room, where he found the kidnapper's ransom note in an envelope on the windowsill. The note contained bad handwriting and grammar. He then took a gun and went around the house on the grounds with his butler. They found impressions on the ground under the window of the child's room and pieces of a cleverly designed wooden ladder. They also found a baby's blanket. And the butler then phoned the police department that the child was missing and to come immediately. It took them like 20 minutes to get there. So after midnight, a fingerprint expert examined the ransom note and the ladder. There were no usable fingerprints or footprints that were found. Leading experts concluded that the kidnappers wore gloves and had some type of cloth on their soles of their shoes. Apparently they read some Sherlock Holmes stuff. No adult fingerprints were found in the baby's room, including in areas where witness admitted to touching, such as the windows. But the baby's fingerprints were found. Maybe they just had a really bad fingerprint expert. The brief handwritten ransom note was riddled with spelling mistakes, which said, "Dear Sir, have $50,000 ready, 25,000 in $20 bills, 15,000 in $10 bills, and 10,000 in $5 bills. After 2 to 4 days, we will inform you where to deliver the money. We warn you of making any public or notifying the police. The child is in gut care. Indication of all letters, signature, symbol. There's a strange symbol on the right-hand side, and then there's 3 holes at the bottom. And there's like some weird circles, a red dot, and a couple more holes punched through it. On May 12th, the child's corpse was discovered by a truck driver on the side of a nearby road. It had been like 2 months and really bad decomposed. And this was after they even paid the ransom the way they wanted it. And,
That's a lot of just bills.
It is just a lot of random.
Yeah, like $10,000 in fives. You know how big that stack of fives would be? How are you possibly going to carry that around?
Yeah, this was back in the day too. I don't know. Maybe they were worried. I don't know. Things were different back then. So in September of 1934, a German immigrant carpenter named Richard Hauptmann was arrested for the crime. After a trial that lasted from January 2nd to February 13th, 1935, he was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. Despite his conviction, he continued to profess his innocence, but all appeals failed, and he was executed in the electric chair at New Jersey State Prison on April 3rd, 1936. The newspaper writer called this the kidnapping and trial of the century, the biggest story since the resurrection. Legal scholars have referred to this trial as one of the trials of the century, and it wasn't surpassed until like the O.J. Simpson trial at the end of like in the 90s. The crime caused Congress to pass the Federal Kidnapping Act, commonly called the Lindbergh Law, which made transporting a kidnapped victim across state lines a federal crime. Seems like that should have already been a thing. So how do you remember the kidnapping happening, Rebecca? Were you the one who thought this was different, or did you just see the Mandela effect differently?
I didn't really know anything about it, but when I told it to my coworker, she was the one who was like, no, they never found them. There were people saying that they were the Lindbergh baby, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Sorry to disappoint.
Yeah. What's up, Swamp and Stacy? But there's a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding this that have developed over the years. Whether the kidnapped child was actually a decoy baby or not. It was huge news all around the world because Charles Lindbergh was famous for making the transatlantic flight. He was big in Germany and the UK. He was well known everywhere. Several people suggested that he may have actually been responsible for the kidnapping. He was a serial adulterer who fathered 2 children with his wife's sister.
Oh, solid.
Yeah. So
keep it in the family.
Yeah, the Lindbergh family was shocked by the news and refused to believe it. Eventually, because both the sisters were actually disabled.
Oh.
So yeah. So he was very big into the idea of eugenics and believed in breeding healthy children from healthy parents. It was surprising for his family to learn they had fathered 2 children with 2 disabled women who were unable to walk perfectly. So it was kind of like a hypocrite. Yeah. So
it's kind of like Hitler wanting blonde hair and blue eyes. Meanwhile, he did not.
Yeah, well, Lindbergh was also in with Hitler. They were really friends.
Solid. Well, I mean,
I don't know if they were really good friends, but they were close.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Nazi eugenics thing came from America. Not a lot of people know that. That started here.
A lot of it came from Lynchburg, Virginia.
Yeah. So it's crazy to think about. Everyone talks about, how bad the selective breeding and killing people who were impure and sterilizing them and stuff. And it's like, that started here, Hitler didn't come up with that on his own. He read that somewhere and it was from America.
Yeah, he read it while he was in jail. So all those cool papers and books from America. So it all started somewhere. Swamp said 2020 is canceled. See you guys in 2021. I wish. I mean, this year has sucked. I mean, we can't leave the house But at this rate, we'll be stuck inside by then.
Well, I'll have to still go to fucking work, but you can be stuck inside. Don't even get me
Insurance is an
started.
essential business. It's a financial institution, so we still
Okay,
have to
well,
work.
you know, running people's lab work is also essential when
Oh,
it's
yeah,
lab
definitely.
problems. I feel like it shouldn't be me doing it though. That's a whole nother tangent. Read your thing about it being disabled.
So the Lindbergh baby was also most likely physically disabled, and this caused people to think that Charles might have arranged a kidnapping as a way to secretly move the baby to be raised in Germany. While 7 months pregnant in 1930, his wife flew with Charles for 2 weeks in an open cockpit
That
at a
sounds like
high
a good idea.
at a high altitude. And upon returning from the trip, she was hospitalized for 4 days. And when he was questioned about this by the press, he lied about her condition and what happened. After the baby was born, Charles immediately he was immediately put on a special weird diet to try to like combat his like weird illnesses. He had a larger head than usual, and he showed symptoms of indicative to rickets. What's rickets, Rebecca? I don't know. It's some sort of like disorder for children. Usually, it's found in like people who didn't have enough nutrition as a baby, so like in lower families, like poor families. So, which would have been strange because like Lindbergh was like really wealthy. So they think the altitude sickness might have had something to do with it. And there were constant rumors that there was something seriously wrong with this child, like around the press, because I mean they were really like tabloid type people back in the day. They were like the royal family, height of it. So I found a clipping of it that they fed this kid. He would have a half cup of orange juice when he woke up, 1/4 milk during the day, 3 tablespoons of cooking cereal morning and night, 2 tablespoons of cooked vegetables once a day, the yolk of 1 egg daily, 1 baked potato or rice once a day, 2 tablespoons of stewed fruit daily, a half cup of prune juice for his afternoon nap, and 14 drops of, how do you say that?
Viceroy?
Viceroy, yeah. A vitamin preparation during the day. Do you think it's a good diet for a baby?
That one doesn't sound like enough food. And 2, how the fuck is a baby gonna eat a baked potato?
Maybe
and
they
rice?
mush it up.
Yeah, but it's like this is like old man food. Prune juice and rice and baked potatoes. That's old man food. This baby wasn't eating right.
I mean, this is also food from like 100 years ago. So
that's crazy to think about.
Yeah, this is a century ago, guys.
Wild.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty crazy diet for like any kid almost. It's kind of for one day. That's pretty spread across
I don't really
there.
know what would be normal
We
for
don't have kids.
babies back then. But you know, like you think it'd be some titty milk. Like
keep it simple.
Yeah, is the quart of milk breast milk or is it cow milk? Why do they have such weird what is cooking cereal?
It's probably
what the fuck is that? Is that oatmeal?
Yeah, what to feed the kid because they were worried about his health problems.
Yeah,
so,
well, they dropped it on his head and they didn't have to worry about it.
That's messed up.
That happened. Yeah. They dropped the baby on the head. I think that they had the intentions of like keeping it alive and just like giving it back once they had the money. But I think it's thought that they dropped him when they were coming out the window, like dropped him down off the ladder and he dented his head in. And then, you know, he didn't recover from that. And so they just ditched him.
Or he just had a dented head to begin with.
No, I think they dropped him. I think he was dropped and his head dented. And they threw him on the side of the road. It's pretty terrible.
Yeah, Lindbergh actually fathered at least 7 secret children between 1950s and 60s.
That's 20, 30 years later.
Yeah, he did it, like, he flew all around. So you might be secretly related to him because he got around.
If you're not related to Attila the Hun, you're related to Charles Lindbergh.
Yeah, he got out there. And he wasn't shy about his like white supremacist and like anti-Semitic beliefs. In 1939, he wrote to the Reader's Digest that Americans can have peace and security only so long as we band together to preserve the most priceless possessions, our inheritance of European blood, only so long as we guard ourselves against the attack of foreign armies and dilution of foreign races. According to him, maybe some bad, which could hardly have been accomplished without fanaticism. So, he also liked eugenics. He was all about it.
I don't get being so into eugenics, but doing it with someone who is disabled.
This guy had some issues. A lot, I read like a psychological thing about him saying that like he let the fame go to his head and he would just do whatever he wanted. Like
that sounds like a man thing to do.
Yeah. That was the second most racist thing I've done today. I've heard today. Yeah, he's messed up. Yeah. But his wife was also a fan and wrote a letter saying that Hitler was a very great gentleman that inspired religious leader and such a rather fanatical but scheming, not selfish, not greedy for power, but mystic, a visionary who really wanted the best for his country. On the whole, as rather than a broad view. So
you probably shouldn't read that quote. That's a quote right there. You should probably skip that.
I was doing it, and then Rebecca likes to point out the different things. So, what do you think? So, do you think the kid accidentally got dented?
Yeah, like I think that they kidnapped him for ransom, and maybe they kidnapped him to take him somewhere, and whatever. But I think they dropped him on accident. It was like, oh fuck, this baby's head's now dented. It's crying and screaming. How am I supposed to get away? It's not looking right. And they chucked it somewhere and took off.
I think.
But also, like, did they go get the money? Because it said he paid it.
Yeah, he paid him.
So they knew they had dented this baby's head and thrown him somewhere. And then they went to get the money. I have questions. Like, why would you give someone the money if you don't see the baby?
That's how ransoms work. You pay it and
hope you show me my baby before you get, how much was it? 50,000?
I think so.
You're which would have been crazy back in the day. Until you let me see it. That's just me. I'd have to see it. Not just giving you my money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how's it going, Chris, Kenneth? I hope you're having a good night. Sorry, we missed you last week. We were really late doing this last week. So
we're still kind of late. I need to be asleep.
Yeah. Would you want to read the next mystery?
If you make it bigger.
Oh, yeah, do it. We only have 3, so it's going to be short, you guys. So if you guys know of any aviation mysteries or any Mandela effects, let us know in the comments.
Took off from Walker AFB in Roswell, New Mexico, where all good mysteries come from, carrying 44 passengers and 9 crew members. They were headed to an RAF base in Suffolk, England, and were over halfway to their destination when a raging fire broke out in the cargo hold. The pilots radioed a U.S. Coast Guard weather ship to declare a mayday, and after failing to extinguish the flames, decided they needed to make an emergency water landing while there's still daylight remaining. They notified the Coast Guard ship of their intent and readied the cabin for ditching. Their position was reported as being about 400 miles off the Irish coast. Surprisingly, the captain actually managed to put the plane down safely in the Atlantic with no fatalities or major injuries. All hands then put on their life vests and evacuated the aircraft onto 5 inflatable emergency rafts. They were equipped with signal flares, hand crank radios, cold weather survival gear, and ample food and water. A Boeing B-50 performed a flyby of the ditching location and observed the survivors in the rafts below, apparently all alive and well. The B-50 crew made a note of their coordinates, relayed them to the Coast Guard ship, which was en route to rescue the men, and then headed back to the base to refuel. When the Coast Guard arrived at the coordinates the next morning, neither the aircraft nor the life rafts were anywhere to be found. The survivors had theoretically been well prepared to tough out the night on the water, but there was absolutely no sign of any one of the 53-man crew. The only indication that there had ever been a crash in the first place were a few pieces of charred plywood bobbing forlornly on the waves. The survivors' bodies were never found. Overall, the fate of the crashed C-124 and its 53 occupants remains undetermined. In 2012, more than 50 years after the disappearance of all personnel on board the plane, 2 men from the crash were granted graves at the Arlington National Cemetery. What do you think happened to the survivors?
I don't know, but there's some interesting conspiracy theories about it.
Well, why did they get left? Them and sink them?
I guess
Why
because
did you leave them?
supposedly it wasn't stormy that night, and
So?
I think maybe they weren't prepared enough to rescue them at the time, and they needed more boats.
But they knew about it because they specifically went to the coordinates. So why didn't they pick them up?
I think they weren't prepared to pick them up at the time.
Then why did they go?
I think they were scouting to make sure they were like confirming it.
Stupid.
So that's the only thing I can think of. I thought about the water there is really harsh and cold, so they might have all like hypothermia and drowned.
Hypothermia.
Yeah, and drowned before then.
Only one person can fit on a door. Two people can't fit.
So like, I don't know, but you would think the rafts or some other debris would be found. It's kind of strange that they didn't hear.
We have a whole plane a couple years ago that disappeared. No one ever found.
Yeah, Malaysia.
Yeah,
that's a big mystery, and there's so much that goes into that. That's why we haven't ever covered it, because you can go so deep with that, because there's a lot of theories and speculation about what happened to that.
Yeah, and that's recent, and that's a whole plane.
Yeah. So some of the conspiracy theories about this one was that the weather was described as clear, with just a little bit of precipitation here and there because it's in the middle of the ocean. Families of the deceased suggested that their loved ones were captured by the Soviet Navy in the hours between when they were last seen by the Superfortress and when the Coast Guard reached them. The U.S. government has never endorsed this theory about what happened. Others have pointed to a document found years later as proof that something odd happened during the flight. The document said that the Gander, Newfoundland, suggested that the aircraft landed there before continuing its flight. This was contrary to the official flight plan. Questions have never been answered about why the Superfortress found the survivors, had radioed their position, and why no other aircraft was dispatched to relieve of a flight to crash. The official report suggests that a propeller had compromised the airframe and made no accounting for the reports of a fire on board made by the crew. The wildest theory centers around that the aircraft may have been carrying aliens from Roswell, and that the alien debris might have interfered with the flying mechanics of the plane and caused it to crash. But landing on the water is really hard to do. Like, they make it seem easy when they do the pre-flight stuff, like, oh, we'll just land in the water and it'll be fine. But it really takes a miracle for it to land. Like the miracle in the Hudson, like in New York, is called a miracle because they landed in the Hudson River, which isn't rough, and they were going really slow, and they survived. But it's really hard to just ditch in the water without the plane completely coming apart and killing everyone.
Cool.
Yeah. The Flaming Skull said Jif peanut butter. That's what we eat.
That's the Mandela effect. I think that's why they said it.
Oh yeah, Jiffy. I think it's Jif. I've always called it Jif.
I have too, and my parents never bought it.
Yeah, my family always bought Peter Pan.
So did mine.
Yeah.
Very subpar. Jif is way better.
We're a Jif family.
Yes, Jif is
even
way
though
better.
Neither one of us had it growing up.
No. And I knew it as Jif then, and I know it as Jif now. Sorry to disappoint. I also have always known Fruit Loops to be spelled F-R-O-O-T.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people have problems with, but I've literally always spelled it that way, always read it that way. Fruit Loops.
I've always the Flintstones too, because that's the point of the pun.
Yeah, same. Yeah, when you told me to look up other Mandela effects to talk about, I was like, all these are stupid, and I don't agree with some of these.
Yeah, a lot of them are just logo based.
Yeah,
so
I did read an interesting one on Reddit with the Fruit of the Loom.
Yeah,
thing.
The cornucopia.
Yeah, and how the cornucopia disappeared. But someone found a shirt that the tag of it had the cornucopia in it, and they posted a picture of it.
That's creepy. We had the cornucopia in our Mandela video, but I don't think we had that shirt picture.
No. Well, someone was just like, I was watching my shirt, and look what I found.
Yeah. And what's up? Jake's here. Tringe.
I see him.
Team Jif. So yeah,
surprised Jake isn't playing games or doing fun things, but I guess we're supposed to be social distanced.
Yeah, you guys gotta be surviving your quarantine. So Do you think the conspiracy theories were on to something with this
Well, I
plane?
do not think that it was the alien that made the thing
Well,
go
I
down.
don't think it was aliens either, but I think it'd be crazy if they did get picked up by the Soviets. I think maybe the flight path was completely different to begin with because, like I said, like the landing in the water is really hard.
Well, I don't know anything about that. But, I mean, they very easily could have sunk.
But they're in rafts. How all 5 rafts sink? I don't know. The ocean's big. It's
As I
hard to
say,
find
the
people.
ocean is very vast. And, I mean, we have a whole plane that's down and unfindable now. I mean, you could definitely lose 50-something bodies in some rafts and not be able to find it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when they're telling you about these rafts and your seat being a cushion and all of this, do you pay attention to the
No, because I
pre-flight
can't
safety?
swim. I'm just like, bitch, if we not gonna make it, I hope I die because I cannot.
That's dark, Rebecca.
That's real though. They're like, oh, your thing's a life jacket, and we got breathing masks, and I'm just like, I hope that I just get knocked out, my heart gets ripped out or something because I cannot.
That's the most likely thing that's going to happen is if you decelerate fast enough, your heart gets ripped out of your chest.
Yeah. So I'm more like, I'm on board with that. I can't swim. I don't want to be on board with, worrying about pulling my thing out of my seat and having a life jacket on and stuff.
So you don't pay attention to the most important thing they tell you during the life. So you should always put your little oxygen mask on first.
You before you put it on your kids and stuff.
Yeah.
Fuck them kids. I'm putting my mask on myself.
You got to help yourself before you can help others. But that's in case the plane loses cabin pressure. So in 2018, 33 passengers were on a flight were hospitalized after a sudden loss of cabin pressure. Ryanair passengers were hospitalized after the aircraft lost cabin pressure and was forced to make an emergency landing. Reported injuries included bleeding from the ears, nausea, and headaches. The standard procedure is the crew deployed oxygen mask and initiated a controlled descent when the accident occurred. The plane descended more than 25,000 feet in just 7 minutes. Cabin pressure, the temperature inside drops. Passengers feel great discomfort in their ears and eyes, but the main health risk is low oxygen. Depending on the altitude of the plane, passengers only have about 18 seconds to put on their oxygen mask before they pass out from the lack of oxygen.
Hypoxia.
Yeah, hypoxia. That's good that you said that because it's later on what that is.
Yeah, hypoxia.
Yeah.
And I know what that is.
Yeah.
I don't know what rickets is. I know what that is.
In the event of sudden depressurization, pilots are trained to bring the plane down to altitudes where the air is warmer and more oxygenated. Would you freak out if a plane lost cabin pressure?
Nah, I think I'd be fine. Still sleeping.
Yes.
Yeah, freak. What kind of question is that?
Just put on your mask. You got 18 seconds. That seems like you should have to practice that. Like 18 seconds when you're freaking out. You're like, oh God. And you're probably breathing really fast too.
Yeah,
so
meanwhile, I can't follow instructions. Yeah. They'd be like, what?
What's going on?
Pass out.
Yeah, it would not be fun. So it'd be really scary.
Yeah.
So have you heard of flights where this actually happened before?
Where people started bleeding out their noses and stuff? Yeah. No, I don't specifically look that up, but I know you do.
Yeah. Well, you can read and tell about this one. This one's creepy.
Is hypoxia also in here?
Yeah, that's why.
Helios Airways Flight 522 was a scheduled passenger flight from Larnaca, Cyprus to Prague, Czech Republic, with a stopover in Athens, Greece that crashed on the 14th of August, 2005. When the aircraft arrived from London earlier that morning, the previous flight crew had reported a frozen door seal and abnormal noises coming from the right aft service door. They requested a full inspection of the door. The inspection was carried out by a ground engineer who then performed a pressurized leak check. In order to carry out this check without requiring the aircraft's engines, the pressurization system was set to manual. However, the engineer failed to reset it to auto on completion of the test. After the aircraft was returned to service, the flight crew overlooked the pressurization system state on 3 separate occasions during the pre-flight procedure, the after-start check, and the after-takeoff check. During these checks, no one in the flight crew noticed the incorrect setting. The aircraft took off at 9:07 with the pressurization system still set to manual and the aft outflow valve partially open. As the aircraft climbed, the pressure inside the cabin gradually decreased. As it passed through an altitude of 12,040 feet, the cabin altitude warning horn sounded. The warning should have prompted the crew to stop climbing, but it was misidentified by the crew as a takeoff configuration warning, which signals that the aircraft is not ready for takeoff. In the next few minutes, several warning lights on the overhead panel in the cockpit illuminated. One or both of the equipment cooling warning lights came on to indicate low airflow through the cooling fans, a result of the decreased air density, accompanied by the master caution light. The passenger oxygen light illuminated when at an altitude of approximately 18,000 feet. That was an incomplete sentence.
Yeah.
Shortly after the cabin altitude warning sounded, the cabin radioed the Helios Operations Center and reported the takeoff configuration warning on and cooling equipment normal and alternate offline. He then spoke to the ground engineer and repeatedly stated that the cooling ventilation fan lights were off. The engineer, the one who had conducted the pressurization leak check, asked, "Can you confirm that the pressurization panel is set to auto?" However, the captain, already experiencing the onset of hypoxia's initial symptoms, disregarded the question and instead asked in reply, "Where are my equipment cooling circuit breakers?" This was the last communication with the aircraft. The aircraft continued to climb until it leveled off at FL 340, approximately 34,000 feet. 19 attempts to contact the aircraft between 10:12 and 10:50 also met with no response, and at 10:40 the aircraft entered the holding pattern for Athens Airport. It remained in the holding pattern under control of the autopilot for the next 70 minutes. Two F-16 fighter aircraft from the Hellenic Air Force 111th Combat Wing were scrambled to establish visual contact. They intercepted the passenger jet at 11:24 and observed that the first officer was slumped motionless at the controls and the captain's seat was empty. They also reported that oxygen masks were dangling in the passenger cabin. At 11:49, flight attendant Andreas Protomo entered the cockpit and sat down in the captain's seat, having remained conscious by using a portable oxygen supply. Andreas held a UK commercial pilot license but was not qualified to fly the Boeing 737. Crash investigators concluded that Andreas' experience was insufficient for him to be able to gain control of the aircraft under the circumstances. He waved at the F-16s very briefly, but almost as soon as he entered the cockpit, the left engine flamed out due to fuel exhaustion, and the plane left the holding pattern and starting to descend. 10 minutes after the loss of power from the left engine, the right engine also flamed out. Just before 12:04, the aircraft crashed into the hills, killing all 121 passengers and crew on board.
Yeah. That's what creeped me out most about the story is the flight attendant who almost tried to save the day but ran out of time. It's just like he was really close.
Where were you like 5 minutes ago?
Yeah, which makes me think like was he fighting all this to try to find
He probably was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's just like that guy went through so much to try to get to that point, and then just like right when he was trying to do something, there was nothing left to do. It's like time was out. Like he just failed the level. So, which one of these do you think was the creepiest between the three stories? I think this last one. I mean, the Charles Lindbergh, and then this one was really weird.
I mean, all the missing people.
Yeah.
Also weird.
Yeah.
Krawatoa.
Yeah. Big Rob said hi to you too. How's it going? We just kind of finished our little outline. It was short, quick, easy. 3 little mysteries. So the dog's being rambunctious because she hears rain.
Yeah, she just started gruffing. She's digging in the floor, walking around, doing sassy things.
Being a bad dog.
Are you a bad dog?
The worst.
Bad
Not really.
dog.
She's awesome. But yeah, I couldn't imagine being a pilot and making it to I know he couldn't fly the plane, but you at least like radio in and stuff. He gets to that point, sees the other aircraft, the jets, waves to them.
Yeah,
and then
sit down, babes. Go to take control. And then you just.
He's like, I got this. Today is my day to shine. Like in a movie. He's like probably trying to remain calm. And then it just goes to shit. Like that's like the worst day ever.
Bad luck, Brian.
Yeah.
Survives depressurized cabin. Plane crashes and burns 3 seconds before you start trying to land it.
No.
Yeah.
That's like Rebecca complaining her job didn't have enough like coronavirus procedures in place. So instead they took away all the fun stuff that Rebecca likes about her job. Bad luck,
Not
Rebecca.
even that. It wasn't anything fun. They were just like, no jewelry. Everyone's got to check their temperature using the same thing that everyone else is putting in their stuff, and hate all that. We also ran out of gloves.
How do you run out of gloves during a pandemic?
But it's not just, like they have plenty of gloves, just not in my size.
Yeah.
Tons of smalls and larges and extra larges and extra smalls. No mediums.
Yeah. What's a mystery or something we should cover next time either?
Like, I don't know. Are you asking me?
No, I was just general throw that out there because I'm trying to stretch this.
I don't know. I struggled to think of this.
Yeah, I had fun with this. I found one on like. I
was surprised you didn't put Amelia Earhart in this. I thought you would have.
I really didn't have time. There was like 3 more I wanted to put in this. Didn't they find her? Yeah, they think they found her. I think they found her. Yeah.
On an island somewhere.
Yeah.
Chilling.
According to the Weekly World News, she's been chilling there the whole time.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, strangers. For real, a new video coming out soon. It's on an infection. In fact, like how likely you are to be infected. Should be coming out probably maybe Sunday, Monday. I keep pushing it back, struggling. Then after that, it's the spontaneous human combustion video. So it's going to be fun. Those will at least be probably within a week of each other there won't be like weeks between them. So.
I guess we'll see.
No, there will. Those are almost done. So, so I appreciate all of you guys hanging out. It's a Friday night. It's fun. Most likely going to unlist this stream because I wasn't feeling it. So it'll be up for like a day or 2. So thanks for hanging out.
You might as well leave it.
Yeah.
Well, you got to have content for it to be weighed down.
That's true. We'll see. But you guys are the best. Thanks for always making Friday a fun way to start the weekend. So enjoy your quarantines.
Can't relate.
Yeah. Be careful if you still have to work. Hopefully you're still like making money because that's important too.
Yeah.
And as always, enjoy the rest of your weekend and stay strange. And I got to remember to actually hit in stream on time.
Stay strange.
Yeah, now it's going.